Weekends with Whitney, everyone. Are you worried about something this morning? Well, most of us are worried about something, but what if that something has to do with something that happened way in the past? Dr. Nick joins us this morning to help us feel through that.
Good morning, Whitney.
Morning.
Good to be back. And talking about worry, I think you opened it up with a great question, because a lot of our worry, when we think about it, comes from something that happened to us in the past. Some kind of wound, some kind of trauma, which could be an accident, something that happened to someone that we love, and that triggers us into, oh, what could happen?
I've never thought about it in those terms.
Whitney, not only am I a mental health counselor, but I'm a worrier. And I really do believe that every time I feel some kind of threat or some kind of concern for something that I say could happen, it's usually in the past. Coming out of the past, it's triggered. The phrases that I love to say to people is, if you're saying it could, it might, what if, you're probably into some negativity. You're probably into it could be bad, because you know it could be good.
True.
That's right.
True.
But we typically think of, well, what if? So, you know, I could ask you, are you threatened right now?
No.
Well, I could ask you, you're threatened. Good. You know what people would say?
What?
You know what many people would say? Well, the roof could fall in. The sofa could fall in. And I'm like, is that really an imminent threat? Do you hear how we kind of bring it back to today? Is anything really hurting me right now? Am I not somewhat safe?
Sure.
Now, I know there are people hurting and suffering and are not safe. I'm very clear about that. But we're talking to the average American that just worries.
Sure. Worried that their kids would be in an accident. Worried if their kids are going to get sick. Worried if they're going to get sick.
Right. How am I going to deal with health care? What's going to happen to me when I get old?
What about ISIS? Oh, are they coming to get us?
What about ISIS and Ebola?
Right.
I mean,
and statistically, those are irrational fears.
They really are, and that's a good way of putting it. I hate to get so much into the rational versus the irrational, but it really is irrational. That doesn't mean that there's not a charge, because again, the charge is from the past. And so where do we need to do the work? In the past.
That's so
interesting.
interesting.
And it's healing the past.
Because I would think we worry about what's coming tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen with our jobs. But you say go way back.
Well, go way back in the sense of trying to take that dirty laundry and washing it.
Yes.
And cleansing it and transforming it and saying, that's not who I am now. That's not what life is right now. That was then when I fell off the bike. That was then when I was, if someone says I was abused by someone, I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that it's got to be resolved so that we can take the now into the future and have a sense of trust. I mean, Erik Erikson's #1 stage of development was a sense of trust that all is well in the world.
But I have an important question. When you said that people need to work through their past, obviously they haven't been able to do it because they're still working through it. If they can't afford a mental health professional, is there one book you would recommend, or is there one place they should go? What do they do?
I think probably the best resource would be the United Way. I think they're 211 number.
An info line, right.
And it's an info line, and they can talk. But, you know, at the risk of making it simplistic, journaling, telling the story to someone who's a trusted friend, and having that trusted friend tell the story back so that they hear it.
Oh, interesting.
And because again, you're wanting some healing. It's not that you want to go and redig and dig forever. We want to move forward, but sometimes we can really kind of unleash it. And then what we do is when we start worrying, we're like, oh, I'm going back to when I was 15. Do you hear the connection?
I do.
It's not major therapy. It's like, that was a milestone in my life, and that's what triggers it. That's what triggers it.
But is there one book, Nikki? You've read so many. Is there one book that can really help people work through the past?
I can think of many great books, but the one that comes to mind is just coming out very soon, called I'm Limping Very Well, Thank You. It's my new book that's coming out very soon, and I'm telling you, it's a great book.
Well, great, Nikki. Always a pleasure to sit down, and you'll let us know when the book comes out,
I
right?
will.
It's close, right?
Very close.
Okay, great. Stay with us. Much more Weekends with Whitney right after this.